Hi, guys. Okay. I am doing another solo. I asked everybody what they would like to hear about, and a couple people had said what is my process in keeping things fresh since I work for so many different retailers and wholesale showrooms. So I figured what better time to do that than when I'm doing it right now as I'm getting ready for the upcoming gift shows. So I work for retailers and I work for wholesale gift showrooms, and each of them are very different. I have a very distinct style. It's very much Anthropologie, thanks to being with Anthropologie for as long as I've been. I should probably turn the light on. Not that makes much difference, but I have a very distinct look. There's a very distinct architecture. There's very distinct layering. So, with that, I have to be relatively cautious about how I can conceive. So I think that's the right word. How I create different people's showrooms and stores, because obviously, I work for a lot of people that a lot of the retailers shop with at the wholesale level. So Stephen Young, Artful Trading, sales producers, and now 180 Degrees, as well as who else do I work for? Transpac we did. But anyway, so it's really important to make sure that each of these displays feels different, that still has the continuity that I bring to the table. But I also have to, in that same breath, I also have to make sure I'm displaying and merchandising within the style of the showroom. Like, I don't know if you've gone into some showrooms or retailers. It would happen mostly in showrooms, but where you go in and one section looks one way and then you go to another section, it looks completely different. That's two different things that could be happening. One, you either have different merchandisers coming in and setting things up that have two different styles, or you have a situation where, like sales producers, where I am the merchandiser, I'm the overall view and vision of the showroom, and the manufacturer comes in and sets up their space, and they've chosen not to utilize me. They've chosen to do it themselves, and it looks extremely different than the rest of the showroom. That's not always what you want, but that is, Kate, that is truly that's how it works in the showroom sometimes. Stephen Young is very different. Stephen Young has a very distinct style. It is a Stephen Young style, and that is very much what he's known for. He and Lisa, his wife, are very adamant that that is how that is the standard. And that's a word I don't use lightly. Standard, much like Anthropologie, has a standard, and the store display, the cleanliness, everything about that store, that is the standard that we are held to upkeep. And so Stephen, I obviously, I work for him. His wife and I do two different sections. I do more of the lifestyle. Right now I am doing Jellycat, pretty much all the kids sections, Jellycat, Milk Barn, Elegant Baby, and sometimes I'll do Himalayan. But for the most part, Lisa's doing the rest of it. I will be doing 180 Degrees this year. I've done 180 Degrees in the past. When it was within Stephen Young's showroom, I would go in and they'd ship the merchandise in, and I'd go in and do the displays. The guys would come in sometimes and change it. They mostly did Glitterville, but it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to work for them both in Atlanta as well as the Las Vegas showroom for Stephen Young. So that is a totally different style than the Stephen Young way. When we did fine lines, I had to make sure that I kept within the same style of fine lines. And fine lines, if you think about it, Stephen's very big architecture, big florals. There is a lot of the lifestyle and textures. Fine lines, it's much more modern. It's clean. It's a different style altogether. And those, as a merchandiser, it's a fine line of finding my rhythm in that showroom that is that style, and finding my rhythm in the showrooms that I work on the other styles. Sales producers, like I said before, it's two different. I get the chance to work with vendors and create what they want. And where I was saying Stephen Young, where it's a Stephen Young style, it is whatever style that you are, the display is built around your product, but it's really built as the big scale display vision that it all, when you walk in there, it's very cohesive. And that's, I guess, what I'm trying to get to is that it is a very cohesive look across the board when you stand in a Stephen Young showroom. Same thing, fine lines. It's very cohesive. They also don't really have, if I'm correct, some vendors come in and set up their spaces, Peepers, I believe, Archipelago. They are, they're very distinct styles, and it works very much within the fine line style of display. So when I came in and did their showroom for the new opening, I'll be honest, I struggled for probably the first couple days of setup where I started second guessing myself because, I had to make sure I kept the display that was more in a modern contemporary style merchandising versus like the big overall like plants and this and that. And it was surprising, not surprising. I guess because I've been doing this so long, I don't have a lot of moments where I'm like second guessing myself. And literally the first 2 days I was second guessing myself, and I had to take myself out and have a come to Jesus moment with myself of like, look, they hired you for your talent and your speed, and you would not be here doing this if they didn't believe in you. And I think after I talked myself through that, like I let myself go. And I think it's putting my own boundaries on my own self is where I guess I got tripped up. Artful Trading, it's an amazing company to work for. It is a husband and wife team, and they have given me complete control. I'm the person who has come up with their display and their whole overall concept. And I'm lucky enough to be brought in for any showroom moving or new opening. They do temporaries. They set it up as best as possible where it kind of reflects what the showroom looks like. It has been a pleasure. I'll go into how I created their space, but so all of my vendors all feel very different. It's very important, like I said, that I keep their displays, the continuity within the showroom. My retailers, it's a little bit different. I have Rock Paradise, which is a very different store than everybody else. It's a rock store, crystal store. I also was lucky enough to be able to create that whole entire look and display and, create the fixtures and the whole lifestyle feeling. I knew I didn't want it to be a typical rock store. If you've been in any of these stores, it's very, they have tables and they just kind of lay everything out flat. There's not a lot of cross merchandising. And I, there's incense burning. It's everything that I couldn't stand about a rock store. And I really, because they have such incredible pieces, I really want it to be more of a lifestyle where if you're a mom in West, in like West LA, and you are going in and you can find a crystal that like whether it be rose quartz, a self-love moment, or, you're going for a new job and you're going to get a citrine piece. And then also at the same time, you're buying books that are inspirational. Like I really wanted it to be different than these typical rock stores. And so I was lucky enough to be able to create that store, and we created different departments. So we've got a witchy section, we've got a tarot section, and then the rest of the sections kind of move around based on what time of year it is, based on what we're buying, but it all revolves around the crystals are the constant. Serendipity is a general gift store, kids, tabletop, household. She opened Muse House. I was lucky enough to co-create it with her. And because Muse House is crystals as well, it was very different. It's the same thing. It's like where I have two stores that carry similar products, but they need to feel totally different from each other. And Muse House is very much Ashlyn's vision. It's very Joshua Tree. It's very organic feeling. So I was lucky enough to be able to kind of go with what she had and take it and run with it. And Lit Concept is found objects, and it's more displaying as lifestyle as far as like mixing old and new and creating just these beautiful home environment. spaces, which is amazing because it's all furniture. And then there's some gifts, but for the most part, it's all furniture. It's all found objects. It's textiles, but each of them are relatively different. And again, the aesthetic part of it is, my part of it is making sure that I bring to the table my style of merchandising, and then I, kind of roll out, displays that feel indicative to their store versus alike each other. If that even makes sense. I feel like I just ran on and on and on about that. But so some of how I keep things fresh. Well, everything I tell all my retailers is about going out and getting inspired and going through Pinterest and going through magazines. So if I know, say I have a new project coming up, and if I'm recreating somebody's store, like a renovation, I will start with their product. So I'm going to start right now and telling you about, I'm getting ready to go to Atlanta to move. Artful Trading is moving from the 18th floor on a holiday floor. They're moving down into the new renovated garden section in the Atlanta Market Center. And when I concepted their store, their products are all pottery, beautiful, organic looking shapes like shells, and, one vase they had is like this giant vase of, it looks like, mussels that are all together, and sea urchins, and, lots of blues and greens. And it's gorgeous. But the majority of the items are about this big. So it really meant creating a space, one display. It's two parts. The fixturing and the whole overall vision. And for Artful Trading, the whole overall vision, because it was this organic kind of natural, I wanted it to feel kind of like a botanist, because they're all vases and they're all vessels. So it's going to be florists, it's going to be gift shops, but by far and large, I wanted to feel like a botanist. So florals and greens and same, a little bit of that. I'm trying to find the word for it. There's a book, something oddities, and it's all of these sea urchins and whatnot. They're these beautiful black and white drawings. And I just really wanted to feel, I guess, more like a florist and more like a botanist space. So when I started looking at the whole overall vibe, it was the colors were natural, and I, wanted a lot of wood. I wanted something to pop off of the color, or for the product to pop off of. So a lot of reclaimed wood, wood tables. I've had one when we opened one in the showrooms. I had a black wall that I did a big installation of this big tree limb. And then I took their vases and I made macrame and hung them from the twig. And that's all that was on that black wall. So it was more like an installation, but that product itself popped so well off it because it was like these teals and these greens, and it was so beautiful. But that kind of feeling, that natural, organic, greens, blues, woods, like that was really where the display started. And then it goes to fixturing. How are you going to fixture a ton of small things without having a million shelves or a million cubes and whatnot? So I found a lot of reclaimed wood, and we did one whole wall in reclaimed wood, and then I did different shelves at different levels, and that was for the bigger pieces. The smaller pieces ended up going on, a lot of them were on tabletops, because they, when you're dealing with things this big, it's very hard unless you have shelves that are and if you're watching YouTube, you can see me doing this, but if your standard shelving units, I believe, are 18 to 24 inches apart. So, and some of them are like 24 to 36. And that is a very deep shelving unit when shelves don't move and you're dealing with items that are 3 and 6 inches tall. You need to either build those shelves up a lot, which if there's only 4 shelves in a unit, you're not going to get a lot of product on it, or you do them on table displays. So what I did was I had different table displays, and I had a couple of floating bookcases that we did that did hold some of the bigger pieces. And I did do risers with big chunks of cut wood. For the tables, I built up the architecture with other found object tables or crates. And then I would do trays on top of them. And then I would show the vases masked out with like small pieces of cut greens and whatnot. And by separating them out on trays, as well as filling in some of the spaces of the table that were, quote, negative space, you're able to show the product where the trays kind of call things out. We've built the architecture up so the small items are closer to eye level. And then the rest of it would be wood slices and whatnot that get the height. But the real height and the real drama came from the plants that we used. And one of the tricks that I will use for displays, and again, it went back to their whole display and what the feeling was of wood and rope and greens, and was a very long table. They were rolling out their salt and pepper shakers, which are even smaller. And it was really important. They felt important, but when something's only an inch tall, it's very hard to make it look important. So what I decided to do was basically create a tablescape. And I used giant cut pieces of wood for the platters. And then I found just a basic plate, a terracotta natural plate. They don't sell plates. So it's a fine line you walk on when you start bringing in things like that, because inevitably, much like you all know, you have something in the store that's a prop and everybody and their brother brings it up to the register. Can I buy this? And it's like, it's not for sale. So we did the platters, and then I did moss on top of that, and then the salt and pepper shakers. And yes, it was still very small and very low, but how I brought attention to it, so it kind of brings your eye all the way down to the table, was I hung a tree limb above. And then I did the macrame. I took their little round vases and I made my own rope macrame and hung those very, very low. And then I had greens hanging out of them that dropped it even lower, that literally dropped the display right above the salt and pepper shakers in this tablescape. I didn't need to do big architecture. But the product, because it was called out with things hanging above it, really called it out. You went right. You saw exactly where it was, as well as it showed the vases being shown in a different style. So that was how I created Artful Training. So now we are moving into a whole new space. It's a little bit bigger. We built them a greenhouse years ago when we first opened Atlanta and their showroom. We're going to dismantle that. We're going to walk away from that altogether. I feel like it's too kind of country feeling now for them. Like, we've really elevated their bookcases. Dave, I created a display, did a drawing for bookcases, and I wanted to be a little bit more modern, a little bit more, contemporary. So we stained it dark espresso. So we're going to kind of create something like that in Atlanta. For the overall vision, it's still pretty much that organic feeling. I want to have more pendant lights in there where, pendant lights play the same role that doing a display above a table and dropping it right above it. Same thing. They call things out, but it's also, a lot of these showrooms have very high ceilings. For you that have stores with very high ceilings, your tables, even as built up as you get them, you still have this expansive space above you. And a lot of times pendant lights will kind of break that up. It doesn't feel so like open and wide. Challenge is obviously getting up to your ceilings if you have ceilings that high. But if you have an opportunity, and you feel like you have this crazy open, expansive space above you, pendant lights will definitely cut that down a bit. So that's the plan for, and that's how I went about their display and kind of recreating them for when I work with sales producers, I'm lucky enough to work with the vendor and sales producers. My job is to make sure that it is the displays that I do, that we bring in new vendors, that that the standard is upheld to what we've brought it up to. So I will meet with, friend Lily, who you've heard on the podcast. She is part of Sales Producers now. So she's a very distinct look. It's very different than Art Bowl Trading. It's pink, it's girly, it's disco ball. It's like all of that. And so when I met with her, for design part of it, I knew I wanted it pink and girly. I knew I didn't want disco balls. And I love what they look like, but I just feel like everybody is doing them now. So what I did was I went through Pinterest and I started pulling up like ice cream displays and ice cream, trucks and party displays. And when you start digging in, and I always call Pinterest a wormhole, like when you start really digging in and you start looking at like, you go down like a party thing. And then, I always go down Anthropologie windows. I always go down Urban Outfitters fixtures. But as you start digging down into these and you start, following one picture and you follow it to another thing, it's always really interesting to see what comes up. Party displays are some of the best and some of the best wormhole display ideas where, it's you can pull it up by color, you can pull it up by theme, but really like I really wanted Friend Lily to feel fun and like more like a bar. I mean, because it's barware. It's like they are drink stirrers that they laser cut in like super fun styles, and so that's how I kind of went with that. And then it was, with the display elements, it's a party. It is a lot of SKUs to show, so it was really like the fixturing had to be able to house all these pictures, and they are in clear packages. They're all about the size of a book. They're not very big, but there are probably, 300 different styles on it, if not more. So you can't show all 300 of them. So I really, had to figure out fixturing wise, what would hold the most that you could see upright. And then the display really, the fun part of it and the whole vibe of it really became what was out front, which is the bar. And I knew she needed storage. So it was, what can we build her? And first, I think when I first looked at her space, I was going to build her like an ice cream cart, but it didn't give them room to sit down with customers and didn't give them a lot of storage. So I backed it up to a bar. We painted the back wall this bright pink. Then the bar was out of natural wood, because what has happened in Sales Producers, and I don't even know if it was on purpose or not, but now it's like, it's kind of a cool thread that creates the continuity within the stores. There's a lot of raw wood. So I did Saruka. We'll talk about Saruka next, but I did Saruka. They're all natural wood. Then we covered a wall for someone else in natural wood, and so this little thread of natural wood has kind of become what's been the thread of continuity for Sales Producers. So we built her a natural wood bar. I did the top white, and then instead said to make sure I had that pop of pink that tied in the wall that was behind her that was pink. I did an angle and I kind of split the paint and did this like half triangle design. So there was natural wood, then there was this pink that went into this great kind of angular paint job on the side with like triangle shapes. And it was so good. It tied both of them together. And then the display part, because I wanted it to be, again, like a party. And so it was, and because everything is pink, I went to Target and I, roaming the halls, because in Vegas, you're relatively at the will of whatever stores that you have out there. And it's either Hobby Lobby or Target. And God love Hobby Lobby, but I can't do all my shopping there. So I was like, okay, I'll make her little, either faux ice cream cones or I'll make her little cupcakes. And this is, this was probably a week before, 4 days before the show started. I had been doing displays for a month and a half. So I started icing these faux cupcakes. And I can tell you right now, I suck at icing. And two, if you're in a hurry, like I've said this in the past, that if you are impatient or you are ADD and you don't you can't slow down to do displays, that really slow creation of things, you shouldn't do it. And that is 100% me. There's a reason why Anthropologie, there's merchandisers and there's display coordinators. Display coordinators are the ones who do all those amazing installations and the signage and all the slow display. Merchandisers are all quick, fast. We got to get on to the next one. It's the overall picture. That is me to the core. So I'm trying to ice these cupcakes, and oh my God, and mind you, I'm icing them. They're fake cupcakes and they're meant to last, as a display. I'm icing them with, they are plaster of Paris, that's been poured into a cupcake container or a little cup, plaster of Paris. So it gets hard. And then you can take, and this is a great display item for you guys for windows, but then take, caulking, and then you put caulking up, you ice it because it comes out of a tube, just like you would with your actually icing something. It's great. But I, did not have the patience that afternoon, and I did 4 and they look so bad. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. And that's one of those things that it's very risky when I try and do displays sometimes, because I do not have a display coordinator with me. And if I'm not in a place of calm and patience, then I'm screwed. So back to Target I went, and I ended up buying cupcakes because it was Valentine's around the corner. So I bought pink and red cupcakes, which were perfect color. And then I let them sit out for the 4 days before the show. I did have to tell all the reps, and I had to tell everyone at Friend Lily, do not let anyone eat these. They are, they're old. And I also decided to go over them with a coat of clear coat spray. So don't eat them. And as you all know, if you have real food, I use bread a lot in displays because it's great. It's hard. Somebody can't come up and put their finger in it. I can't even tell you how many times we would do these cake displays at Anthropologie, and they would be with a softer, type of putty or whatever to make the icing. And every single fucking time you put it out, some customer sticks their finger in it, and it's like, why? But so that's how I concepted Friend Lily. And it's really, really for me, I know it's like Saruka, same thing. It was really going through what they created, their recycled leather bags. They started doing shoes. So it was really how do we make something look natural? I didn't want to look white and modern and contemporary, because that was not, I've seen it shown in other showrooms. I will do my due diligence. And if I'm in other showrooms, in other buildings, I will go to the showroom just so I can see. I'm not knocking it off. I just want to see what it looks like in theirs. And if it is really good, I will try and keep it to where it feels like that. So, if you're going to Atlanta and you go to wherever, that there's some continuity for the brand that, I'm standing in Saruga space. Everyone else had it on white shelves, and it just didn't look like something that was a recycled product. And and this is the caveat, I didn't want it to look like hippie recycled. I wanted it to look chic recycled. So we decided same thing. Let's pull in plywood. We made plywood risers. We cover the walls in plywood. I did do white shelves, because this is the thing, white on white. If you've got a white wall and you put white shelves, whatever you put on it, yes, is going to pop, but it doesn't have any depth to me. It just feels like it just sits on the shelf. So when we put the plywood and then we put the white IKEA floating shelf on it, any product on it, when you look at it, you see this beautiful background of this natural wood. It's sitting on a white shelf, so you still get that pop of white, but it made 100% difference of having a white wall and white shelves. And then we decided to do drop lighting above it. Again, it was really important that the lighting felt like the fixture. So going back through and kind of looking at some more industrial things, and that's, how kind of Saruka came to be. But when it comes to when I'm doing 4 or 5 different brands at the same time, I will literally have 4 different vials going, and I will go through magazines I start with a Pinterest. I start really getting ideas. I'm a touch and feel tactile person. Like I need to go through magazines. I need to see it, tear it out, keep it in a file. And then I can, I tried to print stuff off of Pinterest, but it doesn't work out. So I'll vacillate back and forth between my file and Pinterest. And then I start doing notes on what the props will be, what the contextualizers are. And if you're wondering what contextualizers are, because I had this come up when I spoke at H&H America show, is what is a contextualizer? And I realized not everyone knows. So contextualizers are your florals. They are whether you use wood trays or wood slices, they are your greens. They're anything that is going to add texture and color as a prop to your display. It gives displays a much more of a lifestyle feeling. It gives it depth. So contextualizers are in there as well as far as like what we're using. So are we using like for when I do Masane and I do rosy rings, they're pressed flowers in these beautiful candles. And to me, it's like, I want it to feel like a flower stand. I want it to be super abundant and full. So she sells faux flowers from Raz, which I will tell you right now, I tell all of my vendors this, that if you want faux plants and you want faux greens in your store, absolutely. Why go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's and just order it and keep it as display if you can go to, and you have customers that want to buy it? So why would you do that instead of going to a wholesale vendor and ordering it and bringing it to your store and selling it? Because what it does, it creates add-on sales. You're getting the best of both worlds. You need greens and flowers for your store, and you've got it for sale. I've always said everything in your store should be for sale, and I still say that. If it's a fixture or a prop or something like that, do it the Anthropologie way, which is price it so high that if you sell it, it's absolutely worth it. But everything should be for sale in your store. So if for me, for the Masane, for the rosy rings, it was like, I really wanted to feel that abundance of like, you're walking through a flower market and you're holding this big giant bundle of roses, and they're garden roses and they're lush and they're full. So that's kind of how I start with that. And then, for other displays, it's like, for tabletop, it's like, what does it feel like? Is it Italian? Does it need tomatoes? Does it need, what do the fixtures look like? Do we need cutting boards? This is where my bread comes in. But I will have my photos in my Pinterest of overall big scale display. If it's a window or an opening entry, or it's a renovation, or it's a store opening. And then I will have my tears out of my magazines that are anything from, what I find inspiring about magazines and why I believe them, like bringing them all in. And I get magazines from everything from food magazines, because flat lays that food magazines do, like Food and Wine and Bon Appetit, flat lays are some of the most beautifully displayed shots that I've come across, because they will utilize textures and colors in the tablecloths. They will use textures and colors as well as in their dishes and their serving pieces, and how they lay it out. The bread's broken, and it's so yummy that visually that I find a ton of inspiration out of those magazines. Fashion, color. Fashion always will be the on trend, what is going to be coming down the pipeline for gifts. So I love to be able to keep my fingers on that, as well as when I have apparel showrooms or apparel stores that, just obviously to keep up with like what is trending, what are the colors, because even though fashion is fashion and you may not sell it, the colors and the trends and all of that does play into, or can play into, your displays at the store. So I will have those. And then, honestly, like a lot of it is keeping my eyes open in other stores and seeing what other people are doing. And I always tell people this, because I think a lot of people get hung up in I am afraid to make things, I'm afraid to go into other people's stores because I think they're going to think I'm knocking them off. And yes, like in some cases, for sure. Like I know when we were all at Fred Siegel, like, you had your friends that had stores, and then you had your stores that were slightly competitive. And you go in there and it's like, you have people looking at you and like, so what's up? Like, how are you? And it's, you could be shopping, but a lot of times you're just seeing whatever everybody else is selling, not so much their display, because you want to be different than somebody that's, especially in that environment where we're all under the same roof. But I'm sure you have neighborhoods. I'm sure your neighbors know who you are and you know who they are. And I'm sure there's some that you're not friends with, that you're competitive with. And if you walked in their store, they would think you're not, you're just there getting inspired. And you don't have to go in their store, but find some stores that you love. In California, Rogers Gardens in Newport Beach is the number one place I would go for inspiration. It is so beautiful, over the top. It is a beautiful combination of nursery and gift. Their Halloween, for those of you who know. If you don't know, I highly suggest following them and Google, or even just if you do hashtag Rogers Gardens Halloween, you will be blown away. Each year they change the theme of Halloween. One year it was not nursery rhymes. It was like, the big bad wolf, like those stories from childhood, and they literally made them come to life. I mean, they were so incredible. I think last year they did a big giant, I think it was like the crazy, I'm really having a hard time talking with it. It was the crazy scientist. So it had all these bubbling cauldrons or science experiments, and they buy into, when they theme it out, they know what the theme is. They do the shows. They are buying for that theme. But that store inspirationally, like, has always been my go-to. And now that I'm in Oregon, I'm so bummed that I'm not around this amazing inspiration. But if you have stores like these, go in them. Terrain is insane. Like it just, whether you're looking at fixturing, you're looking at how they're displaying it, like all of it, like I do that as well. And all of these things are how I keep myself inspired, as well as how I differentiate one store to the next. Like, each of them has to have a different personality. Each of them has to feel different, but the common thread is how I merchandise. But it's truly important that you go out and for those who are like trying to think about how to keep things fresh for you, go out and look at different things. Look at if it's your window, like, what is this window talking about? And it's like, outside of holiday, I mean, holidays are easy. It's a given, like you already know what you're going with. But outside of holiday, it's like, look at what, when I was speaking at H&H, and now I want to do this display, but when I was speaking at H&H is a handicraft show. And and if I've already told you this, I apologize, but it is from Cologne, Germany. It is yarn, it is crafting kits, it is fabric, it is embroidery. It is the most incredibly inspiring show. I mean, there's so much there. I had a chance to teach a masterclass for 2.5 hours to 15 retailers. And we were building a display, and I was teaching and talking about cross merchandising, how to build up your display for architecture, all of it. And when we were talking, because these stores are very different than gift stores. Like, some of them carry gifts, but by far and large, most of them, it's yarn, it's embroidery, it's tools to create these things, fabrics alone have their own style of display, and there's not a ton that you can do with them. So it really gets down to your opportunities become your windows. They become, if you do have a few focal tables and, the tops of your fixturing that usually are empty, those are your big display moments for these stores. So for the window, I was like talking about my favorite thing, bread. And I said, I think it'd be so cute if you got an old bike and you put a basket on front, and then you took bread baguettes, like the big tall baguettes, and then wrapped yarn around them in different colors. And you still left out the top of the bread, and you still left out a little bit of the bottom. And you had all of these baguettes coming out of this basket on this bike. I think that would be the cutest display. Now I'm going to try and figure out where I can do it. I don't know where, but like, I think because bread dries beautifully and it's like, it shows what the product is. It's inspiring because it's, it's whimsical. And sometimes when you are concepting, when I'm concepting and it's not the overt holiday, sometimes you have to really think about like, what is something kitsch we can do? Does it need to show product? Can it be just an installation? Like somebody there also said, we have such bad sun in our windows that I really had to make our windows much more about an installation and not have all of our product in it because it gets bleached out. So when I'm concepting or when you're concepting and when you're keeping threat fresh and you're trying to think about how to change things up, think a little bit outside of the box on, what time of year it is, what something kitsch you can do that still tells the story of who you are, but really is kind of whimsical. And that window display I really want to do. And I don't know where I'm going to be able to do it. Like I don't have any yarn stores, but it's a display that I could do for anybody with the yarn. Cause as you can see the deer behind me with the wrapped antlers. Like I think that it's one of those things where it could be really cute. And if it's a retail store with apparel, like just 2 mannequins in there, especially if this is like a fall window with the bread and the yarn wrapped around where it's like, if you pull on the yarn, same colors as the sweaters. So hopefully this gives you a good insider to how I concept and how I kind of look at things and how I approach gift show season. Gift show season this may be coming out smack in the middle of it, but I am super excited to hopefully see you all. I will be doing Vegas as a buyer, so I will be walking the floor. I will not be doing Atlanta market this year. We're looking at January to do 3 different things. I'm going to be doing the podcast. I am going to be doing a seminar on merchandising, and then I'm going to be doing a tour of showrooms that I love there. So hopefully in January, I'll see you guys in Dallas. But for this show season, I am buckling down. I'll be in Las Vegas. I'll be in Atlanta. And I am blissfully looking forward to hopefully spending a little bit more time here in Oregon since we're just getting settled. So if you have any questions, as always, send me a DM. We're still doing Show Me Your Stores. Again, DM me a picture or email me at mcdesigncollaboration@gmail.com and send a picture of what your store, what you have a challenge with, whether it's your floor plan or building up a display in architecture or how to get traffic to a back area of the store, like whatever it is, send me a picture. I can't address every single thing in the store. I've had a couple emails where I've gotten videos of like the entire store, and you do kind of have to pick one thing or another. And that's what I will work on. But Show Me Your Stores is running. We're running it on TikTok now because it gives me 10 minutes versus 90 seconds. So I will do the teaser loop on Instagram stories. So you can go over to TikTok. If you don't have TikTok, you can DM us. We can try and send you the video. I will try and keep up with this as much as I can, albeit it will be very challenging. And the best part of Show Me Your Stores is I will do this video for you. We'll put it up. And if you would like to jump on a call for 10 minutes with me, we will follow it up with a Zoom call, and I can give you a little bit more detail and explanations on what I'm talking about. So that is it for this week, you guys. Again, if you have any suggestions that you'd like me to talk about for merchandising, for display, for whatever, give me a shout out, and we will add it to the list for the solos. Until then, take care, and I will see you soon.